Welcome to Dune Chapter by Chapter. I'm Dominic. So I took a little break from doing the chapter by chapter series, but now I'm back. And the next two chapters I'm going to talk about are pretty good ones. So in the last chapter, which was a fairly short one, we had Dr. Yueh kind of dealing with his own shame and seeing how the Sadokar and the Harkonnens treated him, even though they were gaining so much from his treachery. He was still considered a traitor, and he was still just like scum of the earth. And in that chapter, we seen how he snuck in and he hid away the still suits and the judicial ring that for Paul, and how he had it all set up that Paul and Jessica would be saved or given a good chance at survival. And that was his way of backstabbing the Baron, because he kind of knew the Baron was going to stab him in the back. So now in this next chapter, House Atreides has been all but destroyed in this chapter. So I'll give a quick brief summary of the chapter so before I go into more and more detail. So in this chapter, House Atreides has been almost completely obliterated and destroyed. The Harkonnens have control of everything, and the Baron is watching the artillery that they're using against the remaining Atreides troops and looking on very gleefully. And then in this chapter also we have the death of Dr. Yueh and the death of Duke Leto by the poison gas tooth. And we also get the death of Piter de Vries. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the Harkonnen using the artillery to seal off the caves of the Atreides men that are hiding in it. So it's kind of suggested that using artillery isn't a common practice in the world of Dune, and it might go against some of the rules of the convention, Great Convention, and the rules of Canley. And you can see the Baron looking on and taking a lot of joy in the fact that now all these Atreides men, they're all going to be sealed away in the darkness of these caves that they went in there to hide, and they're going to die of either suffocation or starvation and thirst in those caves. And just the Harkonnens are like complete, utter sadistic psychopaths, and especially the Baron, he just takes so much glee in the suffering of others. And so the other thing in this chapter is we get to see the double cross of Dr. Yueh. Dr. Yueh betrayed the Atreides, stopped the Harkonnens from torturing his wife Wana. And we find out how they did that. Piter de Vries had Wana trapped or strapped into some pain amplifiers, and they were using that to torture her, and she was in agony and anguish, and they wouldn't let her die. And this is probably the only way to stop it, is Dr. Yueh had to betray the Atreides so the Harkonnens would stop doing that. And then so Dr. Yueh is brought before the Baron Harkonnen by Piter de Vries, and he says, I kept up my end of the bargain. I delivered to you the Duke and House Atreides. Now I want to know if you kept up your end of the bargain. And then, the Baron is being like a prick here and saying, oh, we had a bargain? What was my end of the bargain again? I kind of forget. He's just being totally arrogant. And Yueh snaps at him, like, you know full well what your end of the bargain was. What about my wife? And then, then the Baron says, well, you can see your wife again if you want to. Do you want to join your wife? And then he kind of gives Yueh some false hope. Well, is my wife alive? And then from behind, Piter de Vries slips a knife into his back, and then Dr. Yueh still standing straight up as before, and then realizes the complete double cross. And then the Baron Harkonnen says, well, your wife is dead, and you knew deep down inside she was already dead. You knew I was going to double cross you, basically, and now you get to join your wife because you're going to die too, so you get to be with your wife, so you get what you wanted. And then Dr. Yueh kind of shouts out, or says in his last few gasps is, basically, you think you defeated me, but you don't know what I've won for my wife, my Wana. And then it's described, he just basically falls right over like a stiff board dead as he hits the ground. And then this is kind of troubling to the Baron, because he wonders, well, wait a minute, what was that last statement all about? What was he mean? What did he mean? Because the Baron is very paranoid. Because just the way this world is, when you're in that position, everyone is gunning for you. There's all these people, like even his own nephews, want to like cut his throat or get rid of him so they can take over power. There's always someone below him scheming to take him out, to take his power. And one of those people is Piter de Vries. And so in this chapter, the Baron looks on and he sees how Piter went and so efficiently killed Dr. Yueh with his knife and, gleefully wiped the blood off the blade. And then, the Baron thinks to himself, so this is how he does it. This is how he strikes. This mentat of mine is getting way too dangerous to keep around. I soon got to do away with him and get a new one. And so the Baron is starting to fear his own mentat, because Piter de Vries is almost getting too ambitious, too schemery for his own good. And he sees like how threatening and how with ease Piter can just kill within the blink of an eye, and how efficient he is at it in this chapter. So I thought that was pretty interesting, the growing threat. You kind of have this struggle between the two. And so then we get to see Duke Leto. He's starved, he's dehydrated, he's in chains, he's still all drugged up from whatever Dr. Yueh gave him. The guards bring him before the Baron Harkonnen. And now at this point they pieced it together. Well, maybe, Paul and Jessica escaped. There's no evidence that they were actually killed. Because he asks Piter what happened to the boy, what happened to Lady Jessica, and Piter says, well, we brought him out here and then, we went and the men were dead. So basically the Baron says, well, yeah, that was the whole plan all along, was to kill those guys that dumped off in the desert so no one would ever know. But apparently the guys who were meant to kill those guys found out they were already dead. So now the Baron's kind of worried, well, are they dead? We got to know for sure. So now they're contemplating torturing Duke Leto, get the information out of him. And then you can hear off in the distance in another room, they're torturing another Atreides officer. You don't know who that is. You just hear the cries. Like at this point in the story, you don't know who that other officer is. I think it's Duncan Idaho, but I'm not sure. That's the other officer that they're torturing to try to get this information out of. And the Duke can kind of hear this, and he's kind of not with it. He can kind of he kind of sees Yueh's body getting dragged away, and he's kind of not really with it, and he's like looking at the Baron's fat hands, how it's handling its food and its plate, and he's all obsessed with it, and he's not quite there. And then the Baron, is trying to, it's basically paying Duke Leto some phony respect. Oh, you're a royal cousin, you're like a royal, colleague. So I don't want to get messy, and I don't want this to be messy. I want you to die cleanly. So why don't you just tell us where, Lady Jessica and your son is, and it can be over, because we're gonna find him anyway. So there's not really any point in resisting. But then that sticks in Duke Leto's mind, and he realizes the boy and the woman could possibly be alive. And then he thinks of Yueh's words. In exchange for you doing this for me, for you killing the Baron Harkonnen with your poison gas tooth, I'm going to save the life of Paul and Jessica. And so he starts to realize that. And then it starts to come back to him a little bit. And then Piter is there, and he's contemplating all the different ways they can torture him. With like hot tallow, they can lay it on his skin, and that's the key to it. It can be put on your eyelids or on your back or on your fingers, anywhere. And he says, oh, well, that's the interesting thing about it, is when you don't know where the next hot burn is going to land. And the Baron says, oh, Piter, he doesn't have all of his tools with him here, but I'm sure he can improvise. And you're just showing like how sadistic they are. And the Duke is, he just knows that he's already accepted that he's going to die. He's totally accepted his fate at this point. And as you can see in previous chapters, he's already kind of, settling into that mindset. Like that was really heavily foreshadowed, that he was not going to live. And even deep in his own heart, it seemed that Duke Leto knew that going to Arrakis was going to mean his death. And at this point, he's completely accepted it. And he just knows they can't do anything about it. They can't, even if they do torture him, he honestly doesn't know where Paul and Jessica is. He has no idea where they are, so he couldn't tell them even if he wanted to. And so anyway, as they go on, so the captain of the guard is there, and Piter is there, and so the Baron comes close, and then, he's still in the haze, and he kind of remembers, how to strike. Oh yeah, the tooth. I remember the tooth. So he bites down hard on a tooth and inhales first, bites down hard, and then exhales and releases all that gas. But the Baron slips away. He doesn't get it, but the captain of the guards and Piter gets it with the poison gas. Two of them go down dead, and Duke Leto dies as well. So the Baron scrambles for the exit, and then a bunch of guards come, and then they realize that, they want to figure out what the hell was it, what happened, or something in the room. Piter just dropped dead. So he didn't get any information out of Duke Leto, but his other problem was taken care of, though at the same time he was able to get rid of Piter. That's because Piter was starting to get a little bit too greasy for him, even for the Baron Harkonnen. So that is the end of Piter de Vries in this chapter, and also Duke Leto. So what I'm really can't wait for is to see this play out on the big screen with David the Smallchin as Piter de Vries, and with Duke Leto and stuff, and how this scene is going to be portrayed with the poison gas tooth, with Oscar Isaac playing Duke Leto and all that. It's going to be an interesting scene. It's going to be cool to see how this is going to be done on film, and how Denis Villeneuve will actually do this when the movie comes out in 2021 next year. So that'll be really cool to see. And so then we're introduced to kind of like a side character in this, not a major character, but his new captain of the guard, Nefud. So Nefud is he's brought up to speed because the Baron sees how efficient he is, so he makes him, okay, you're gonna be the new guy, the old guy, the other captain. He's in that room, he got killed, so now you got to go in there, find out what's going on, Sea Loft area, and then this guy is also addicted to Samuta, which it doesn't really go into a lot of detail in the book what it is, but it's just described as a drug and music combo that somehow reaches deep into the mind. And apparently it's addictive. So anything more than that, I'm not really sure exactly how it works. But this new captain of the guard is addicted to it, and now he's really happy that I got promoted, because he knows now he'll never be short. He'll never be short of any supply for Samuta ever again in the future. So he's the new captain of the guard. So what I find, a lot of stuff goes down in this chapter. What I found is at the end of the chapter, and I found this actually really amusing, is the Sardaukar that comes on the scene there, the Colonel Bashar, and how he just is, the Sardaukar, how they treat the Harkonnen guards and the Baron himself. You just tell they have no respect for them. They don't care at all about the Baron's authority. So the Baron's trying to be, so he wants to demand, the Bashar comes up and, I demand to see Duke Leto's body now in the name of the Emperor. The Emperor wants to know that his royal, Duke Leto, he's a fellow nobleman, and see that his body wasn't desecrated and he was killed cleanly, and you guys didn't go on and torture him and make a mockery of him and all that kind of stuff. So he wants to investigate the body and see it now. So the Baron, he's kind of nervous of the Sardaukar. They all are, because even though there is a small group of them there compared to all the Harkonnen soldiers, he even says to himself, even though there's only even though there's more of us here than there are of these guys turn on us, they can wipe out all my guys. The Sardaukar are that savage. They can just mow right through all the Harkonnen guards. And so this guy's very dismissive, and there's a little bit battle of will there that, the Baron has to act tough just so he won't lose face in his own men. And you can tell that this colonel just has no respect, and he just just pushes right past the Baron like he's nothing, and past his other guards, and he doesn't care. And I thought that that was an interesting scene. I like that part of the chapter, just how hard ass the Sardaukar is, and they just don't care. And so then the Baron's at the end of the chapter, he's glad to be alive. He almost died, but now he's off to relax, and he's hungry, and he wants to do some, I guess, fooling around with a slave that they picked up on a planet recently. And he says, I don't feel like wrestling tonight. Make sure that slave is well drugged. So another interesting chapter where lots go down, and Duke Leto dies in this chapter, and so does Piter de Vries. And then we kind of get the mention of the planet Tylax in this one too, where the Baron mentions, well, he has to send for Tylax for them to give him another mentat. And Piter is, I don't think it's mentioned in the chapters if Piter is a Gola or what a Twisted Mentat is, but that's what Piter was. So the Baron wants another one like that. He wants to send the Tylaxu to send him out another mentat. So that is another really interesting chapter, and a lot went down. And now the next chapter is pretty interesting as well. Where the next chapter is kind of going to be more introspective, I guess, if that makes any sense. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one.